Hello and welcome to class. In this practice, we're going to be looking at how we can use the blocks, not only to support us, of course, but also to enhance, to strengthen our practice as well. So make sure you have a couple of blocks, a mat ready or a towel, and then we're going to start in a kneeling position. But we're going to already get a block to support us here. And we've seen this before in the previous class, if I don't get it wrong. So we're gonna bring the block between our legs, and then we're gonna come to sit on it. So the heels might stick a little bit onto the outside of the legs. If this doesn't feel quite right, know that you can always place another block and make it a little bit higher, a little bit more supportive for some. So find what works for you here and come to sit on the block between your heels. Hands are resting gently onto your lap. As always, you can close the eyes if it feels comfortable. Otherwise, you can find a point of focus on the floor where the gaze can become softer. And we're taking a few moments to arrive here, to connect with our breath, to connect with ourselves. To notice how the breath feels, where you feel it in the body. And you can always bring the hands on your chest, on your belly, so that you can become aware of any physical sensations that are happening with each inhale and exhale. You can also take this moment to take a scan through the body, beginning at the crown of the head, and slowly moving all the way down towards the toes. Without any judgment, without any need for criticism, notice how the body feels. If there is any discomfort, if there is any tension anywhere, just acknowledge it. And then to begin, we're going to take a big breath in and let it out through the mouth. Well done. Blink the eyes open if they weren't already. And come forward, moving the block just a little bit more towards the back. Then swing the legs one at a time towards the front of the mat. We're going to come to sit on the block, but a little bit differently. So this time is going to be parallel to the short side of the mat. And we're going to come to sit at the edge of it. We've seen briefly this before, and here is the block serves us, and I want you all to try it no matter what. But it's particularly useful, the block underneath your sitting bones, if when you're sitting on the ground, whether your legs are extended or crossed, you're struggling to keep a long spine. So if you notice that as you're seated, your spine rounds, you'll find a posterior tilt of the pelvis, when the pelvis moves back, we've seen this, the tailbone tucks under. This is particularly, the block, sitting on a block is particularly useful. So we're all gonna experience all the bits with the block, no matter your flexibility, just so that we have an awareness of where we can be helped and support, where it can give us a little bit of strength. So we're sitting at the edge, not completely on the block, so that we're helping the pelvis move a little bit more forward. And it might be that it doesn't find that anterior tilt, it's not exactly that what we're looking for, but we're looking for length through the spine. So once we're here, I want you to keep the right leg extended and bring that left knee in towards the chest. Then let the left knee drop towards the floor. So the left sole of the foot is coming onto the right inner thigh. It's still on the ground, not on top of the leg. Your right leg can stay extended, but you can also add a little bit of a bend here. Depending on your flexibility, find whatever adjustment you need. And then inhale to lengthen even more. And exhale, try to keep that length and walk the hands forward. Now, you might stay quite lifted as we're focusing again on keeping the spine straight, but you can also might be able to walk the hands a little bit more forward, find a little bit more of a fold. Again, find what works for you, what works for your body today. So this pose is called in Sanskrit Janu Sirsasana. And not only we're stretching the back of the extended leg, the right leg in this case, but we're adding a bit of a hip opening with a left leg. Well done. Start to walk the hands back up. Then keep the right leg extended, bring that left knee back into the chest. So the left foot is down on the ground. And then grab hold of the other block. We're gonna place it back behind us. From here, we're gonna inhale to reach the arms up. And exhale, we're gonna hug the left knee in with our right arm. And the left hand is gonna come on the block behind us. The block can be in whatever height you need it to be. From the lowest to the highest, find what works. And here the blocks serve us, especially as we're sitting on a block. It might be that the ground feels a little bit too far, that we need to collapse, that we need to lean back. So to avoid that, to still keep that length through the body, we're finding that block. We're finding that connection to the ground. In this twist, the chest remains open. Notice if the shoulders are crunching up into the neck. Relax in that case. Let it go. Beautiful. And then release the twist, come back through center. We're gonna keep the block behind us. Right knee into the chest, left leg extends. Come a little bit more onto the edge of a block if you weren't already. And then like before, the left knee can have a bit of a bend. You can keep the leg extended and then drop the right knee out to the side. The right sole of the foot is towards the left inner thigh. We're keeping the torso squared towards the left leg. And we're gonna find length here. And maybe this is enough already. Maybe you're able to walk the hands forward and find a little bit more of a fold. When we're folding, if the aim is to stretch the legs, the back of the legs, then we do want to think of an anterior tilt of the pelvis. So the pelvis moves towards the front. And we're thinking about finding a connection belly to thigh or thighs. If the focus instead is to stretch the spine, then you can really allow it to round as much as you need. But in this case, we're gonna keep the focus at the back of the legs. Well done. Start to walk the hands back towards you. Bring that right knee into the chest. Readjust yourself onto the block so that you can feel stable. And then inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale. Left arm comes around the right leg to hug it in. And the right hand reaches back behind. Find that block. Adjust it to whatever height you need it to be. We're still keeping the breath full. So if you're in a place where the breath feels very constricted, then release the twist a little bit. Find a little bit more softness. And instead of reaching all the way to the back, maybe you'll find more of a diagonal line. Well done. Release the twist. Come back through center and then come off the block. Move them both towards the front of the mat. Then you can swing the legs onto one side or cross the ankles and roll over them. And we're coming forward into a tabletop position. We're gonna move straight away into a downward dog today. So we're placing, and we're gonna try a downward dog with blocks, of course. So we're placing them already shoulder distance. And the hands are gonna be on top of the blocks. The wrists are not gonna be directly underneath the shoulders as we want to find a little bit more length here. So the toes tap, you're sending the hips back towards the heels and then all the way up towards the sky. Now you can take a few movements here. You can pedal the knees. You can find a bit of a wiggle of the hips side to side. And notice how this feels. Notice how it feels to have the blocks underneath the hands. So we're bringing them here because this will allow us to shift the weight more towards the feet and move away the pressure from the hands and the wrists. Also bear in mind that not all the modification that we will explore with the blocks might be the best solution for you, but we're here to explore them to find what works for us. So the arms are extended. You're still pressing the hands actively onto the block, onto the blocks. The neck is relaxed. The spine is long. The feet can be a little bit wider than the hip distance if you need. The knees can be bent so that the belly reaches back towards the thighs and the tailbone reaches high, helping us find this inverted V shape. Now, the blocks underneath the hands in a downward dog are helpful for the downward dog itself, but they're also helpful for this next transition, where we're bringing the right knee into the chest. Now, before shifting forward, lift the left heel high, then start to transition towards the front. And then we're stepping the foot at the front. So you might remember how it felt to step the foot forward when the hands were on the ground. It might have been a little bit further back. With the height of the blocks, we're able to move it a little bit more towards the front. Maybe still not between the hands. If it's not there, grab the ankle, move it forward. And then bring the back knee down on the ground. The blocks can stay into the lowest setting like we had them, or you can bring them as high as you need, as always. Inhale, open your heart and look forward. And exhale, send the hips all the way back so that they're coming in line with the left knee. The right leg starts to extend, but it doesn't have to be completely straight. If you're feeling a little bit tight into the hamstring, chances are that the right leg will prefer to stay a little bit bent. That's okay. And the blocks can move with you as we keep transitioning forward and back so that they're staying underneath the shoulders and give you the support at all times. With your next inhale, bend that front knee, come forward, move the blocks to the front. Exhale, send the hips back behind. The blocks are following you. Well done. And two more. Inhale forward. Exhale back. One last time. Inhale, coming to the front. And exhale, we're moving back. So we're moving from low lunge to half splits. This is a nice stretch, once again, for the hamstrings, for the back of the extended leg. Here, once again, you can have the blocks a little bit higher. It's not mandatory, so it's not wrong if you don't do it. Personally, I really like in this stretch to lift the foot so just the heel stays on the ground, and then we're really pressing it onto the mat so that we can feel the engagement into the right leg. We're not just leaving it there completely passive. So find a little bit of engagement, squeeze the thighs in towards each other, keep the spine long. And then we're moving all the way forward. Keep the hands on the blocks. Start to wiggle the right foot as wide as the mat. So now right hand comes onto the inside. And we're transitioning into lizard pose. And so you can stay as you are. Exactly as we landed here, hands on top of the blocks, whatever setting you need them to be. Maybe this is enough. Maybe you're like, I feel like there's a bit more space. Let me try to come down onto our forearms. That's a possibility too. So once again, the blocks serve as a connection to the ground when the ground feels a little bit too far away. Beautiful job. So in our lizard, we're bringing the stretch at the front of the back thigh and into the groin. Come back up onto your hands now. Keep them onto the blocks and move them into the lowest setting now, so that they're ready for us transitioning back into downward dog. So tuck the back toes, lift the back knee up, and then press the blocks to step the right foot back. Well done. Roll yourself forward, find a plank. So the shoulders are coming on top of the wrist. You can adjust the stance. Knees are coming on the floor. And then take a step forward with the blocks. Bring the hands on the ground. And release all the way down on the mat. Well done. Inhale, we're going to find either a baby cobra or a little bit higher. Elbows remain bent. The hands are pressing down and they're pulling back as the chest moves forward. And then release. Bring the blocks underneath the shoulders, underneath the hands. You're pushing the floor away. You're sending the hips back towards the heels and all the way up towards the sky, back into a downward facing dog. Well done. Now, left knee comes into the chest, right heel lifts high, you're transitioning all the way forward, and then right foot steps down, bring it between your hands. Bring the back knee down, adjust the blocks in whatever height you need them to be. Open the chest forward with your inhale, and exhale, send the hips back behind, the blocks can move with you. Inhale, come forward 3 more times. And exhale, move back. And again, inhale, exhale. One last one. And we're moving back. Blocks are underneath the shoulders. We're holding this half split for just a few breaths. The foot is not mandatory, but if you want to keep a bit of engagement, lift it up, just the heel is on the ground. Press the heel down on the mat, feel that engagement into the leg. You can keep any softness into that front knee as you need. The hips are in line with your right leg. And then come all the way forward, back into your low lunge. Wiggle the left foot as wide as the mat. Bring the left hand onto the inside. So both blocks are on the mat onto the inside of the left foot. We're coming into lizard pose. You can stay here, you can adjust the blocks, whatever height. Maybe you come down onto your forearms. Just a maybe, just an option. Notice how it feels, this pose, where you feel it in the body. Well done. And then start to lift yourself back up onto your hands. Bring the blocks on the lowest setting if they weren't already, shoulder distance. Lift that right knee off the floor, and then with control, step the left foot back, downward facing dog. Like we did before, roll yourself forward, plank, and then bring the knees on the ground. Move the blocks forward, hands are coming on the floor. Come all the way down on the mat with control. Grab hold of move one block out of the way, and then grab hold of one block and reach the arms to the front. We're gonna come into a cobra, but we're gonna add a challenge. We're gonna add some more strength using the block. So the arms are reaching forward, you're lifting up the chest, lifting the arms up, keeping them extended. Neck is long in line with the spine, and then release. Now, this variation of extended cobra will help us activate our shoulders, our upper back. So let's try one more time. From here, lift up, lift the chest, lift the arms, and then release. Beautiful. Feels a little bit different than our usual cobra. Now, blocks underneath the shoulders again, push the floor away, hips towards the heels and up towards the sky, downward facing dog. Big breath in. Full breath out. Bring the knees down on the floor. Now we're coming briefly into child pose, and I'm gonna show you 2 ways that you can use the blocks. You're placing one in front of you, lower setting to begin with, and then the block at the back can be like we added at the beginning of the class, just between our feet, our legs, or you can also be on top of our ankles and the hips are coming on top. There's not gonna be too much pressure because then you're reaching the forehead forward onto the front block, and then you're reaching the arms to the front. The block behind your bum is there to give you a little bit of support, as much as is the one underneath the forehead. Once again, this one underneath the forehead can help you reach the floor if it feels too far. Well done. Notice how it feels. You can take a moment also to adjust, to play around. And then with control, come up, Reach both blocks to the front, back into our downward facing dog. Bend the knees and look forward from there, and take all the steps forward that you need to come at the very top of the mat. Feet can be hip distance, but they can also be a little bit wider. Place the blocks in front of you. Keep those knees bent. Relax the head, relax the neck. And you can grab hold of opposite elbows here and find a gentle sway side to side. Letting everything go, any unnecessary tension from the shoulders, from the neck. Keep the head heavy, let it go. Come back through center, release the hands down, keep still the head heavy, and slowly, vertebra by vertebra, start to roll yourself all the way up to standing in your mountain pose, in your Tadasana. Roll the shoulders up towards the ears, all the way down and back. Palms are facing to the front. Take a big breath in, a full breath out. Well done. Now, grab hold of one block between your hands and reach the arms all the way up towards the sky. Now, we're still in a variation of our mountain pose. Having a block between your hands, I'm not sure you can see it, but still there, is gonna help us, like in our extended cobra, activate our arms, our shoulders, our upper back. Well done. Keep hold of the block and then lean towards the right. Feeling a nice stretch into the side of the torso. Then come back through center, keep hold of the block, lean towards the left. Back through center, beautiful. Now, we're gonna bring the block in front of our hips. And we're keeping it with the lowest setting facing us. Now, I'm gonna give you a little explanation of what we're gonna do here. So you heard me say before in the other classes, hinge from the hips. So when we're folding, what we want is to find that anterior tilt as the pelvis comes forward. The hip bones are coming towards the thighs. We aim for that connection belly to thighs, as I was saying before, and then we're folding. That's the hinge from the hips. So what we normally prefer to avoid in a fold is to have the spine rounded and be here. Hips are, the belly is quite away from the thighs. The hips are away from folding to the front, to the thighs. So with the block here, that's gonna help us find that hinge and understand that feeling. So keep the block here, start to fold forward until the belly comes on top of it, and then you're able to let go of your hands and you're folding to the front. Take just a few moments here. The head is relaxed, the neck is relaxed, the arms are just hanging down, dangling here. Notice how this feels. And you have to, of course, find that squeeze between belly and thighs to hold the block in place. This is what we want, even without the block. But this is what can really help us here. Slowly start to lift yourself up. Grab hold of the block so it doesn't fall on the ground. Well done. Inhale, reach the arms with the block up towards the sky. And exhale, see if you can find that hinge, that same sensation without placing the block there. Instead, the block comes in front of you, whatever setting you need it to be to support your hands. Well done. If you're quite close to the ground already, if you're quite flexible already behind your legs, you can also bring one block on top of the other to support your head. From here, hands on the block come halfway up. So this will help us push the hands on the blocks and find length through the spine. So we're finding an L shape, okay, an inverted L shape. The crown of the head reaches towards the front. The back of the neck is long and in line with the spine. So bring the chin slightly in towards the throat. And then the shoulders are going to be more or less in line with the hips. We're drawing the ribcage in. The hands are there to support us in this halfway up. As you know, the hands can also be on top of the thighs, onto the shins. This requires a little bit more strength. So the blocks underneath our hands can really give us, again, that sensation, that feeling of lengthening and being upright and strong, but with a bit of support. Refold once again. Find a hinge. Imagine that you have a block between the belly and the thighs. Well done. Come halfway up once again, hands on the blocks. So you have one at the base and one on top of it into the highest setting. Start to shift the weight onto your right foot and make sure that the blocks are underneath the shoulders, and then you still have that space to lengthen the torso. So the blocks are not attached to the feet here. You have a bit of space. With this in mind, you're shifting the weight onto your right foot. Left leg reaches back behind. The left foot can be close to the ground, but I really want you to focus on keeping that left leg engaged and not just hanging there. So extend it and flex your foot. All toes are pointing towards the ground. Remember, like in our three-legged dog, that's the feeling. You're staying strong with your standing leg. You're using your glutes, and I want you to bring the right hand on your sacrum, on your lower back. Notice if that left side is really dropping down. See if you can lift it up a little bit. Your left hand is still to support you on top of your block in front of you. Well done. And then you can bring that right hand forward. And then this is our warrior 3. Soften that front knee from here. And as lightly as you can, step your left toes back. Bring that top block underneath your left hand. We're finding our runner's lunge. And then a twist by reaching that right hand up towards the sky. If the block underneath the left hand feels a bit too wobbly in the highest setting, you can lower it down. The chest is open towards the side. You're strong here. Well done. Release the twist, come through center. Reach the block in front of you. Step forward back into your warrior 3, lifting that left leg off the ground. And then soften both knees and with control, left foot next to the right. Halfway up, strong and long here. And then fold forward. Think about hinging from the hips, belly towards the thighs. So bend the knees as much as you need. Well done. Once again, with your inhale, come halfway up. Hands on the block in front of you. Lengthen the spine. Strong with your hamstrings, strong in your lower back. And then shift the weight onto your left foot. Right leg reaches back. We're finding our warrior 3. The word in Sanskrit is Virabhadrasana 3. Well done. Your right leg is engaged like we had before. Place the left hand on your sacrum, on your lower back. Notice if the right side is really dipping down. Can you lift that right side of your pelvis a little bit higher so that it comes in line with the left, no matter where your right leg is in space? The shoulders are staying in line with the hips like we have it in our halfway up. From here, soften that left leg, and with control, right toes are stepping back. Right hand grabs hold of the block, places it underneath the shoulder, and then left hand reaches up into a twist. So we have a revolved lunge. Beautiful job. Breathe here. Now, release the twist. Right hand brings the block on top of the base. We're shifting the weight forward. Take all the steps that you need to the front until you can lift that right leg up. Briefly back into your warrior 3. And then soften both knees. Right foot next to the left. And then fold forward. And you can bring the block if you need that support, that help. You can bring the block once again between the thighs and the belly and find your fold here. Well done. Now, release the block if it was between belly and thighs, and slowly roll yourself all the way back up into your mountain pose. We're gonna take a couple more half salutation. So this half salutation, remember the salutation is when we're moving back into downward dog and forward. We discovered the classical one with the lunge salutations, with the high lunge and low lunge. The half one is when you're staying in this same position at the top of the mat or at the back, and you're just coming down into a fold or a malasana, like we're gonna see now, and then you're coming back up. So we're gonna do 2 rounds of that. And we're gonna place the blocks in pointing towards each other, towards the middle of the mat, and moving outwards. And then we're gonna just step in front, and with the feet, we're gonna keep the line of the blocks. So the feet are as wide as the mat, the toes are pointing towards the outside. So we have from the toes pointing outwards, through the heels, through the blocks, we're reaching towards the middle of the mat. We're gonna take this half salutation, as I was saying, with a pose called malasana, which is also called yogi squat. So from here, inhale, reach the arms up, and exhale, we're coming all the way down. And as we're coming down, we're gonna bring the heels on top of the blocks. And then we can let the sitting bones come closer towards the floor. The hands are in prayer at our heart center, and with the elbows, with the upper arms, we're pressing gently onto the thighs, so they're moving outwards. This will also allow us to lengthen the spine and keep the chest open. Beautiful job. Now, bring the hands on the floor, lift the hips up, and you can move the heels away from the blocks to find your fold. Inhale, come halfway up, hands onto the thighs or shins, and exhale, fold forward. Reach the arms all the way up towards the sky, lengthen, and then all the way, once again, down into your malasana. This time, we're gonna bring one block in whatever setting you need it to be, lowest, medium, or highest, underneath our sitting bones. So underneath our hips, and we're coming to sit on the block. We're still keeping that same position. The knees are pointing outwards, hands into the heart center. We're pressing onto our thighs, lengthening the spine and opening the chest. Well done. So these are 2 ways that you can support your malasana, your yogi squat, with blocks. Beautiful. Hands on the floor. You can use the block in front of you underneath the hands if needed. Find your fold. Inhale, come halfway up, lengthen. And then exhale, refold. Very nice. Reach the arms all the way up towards the sky. And then down into your heart center. Finding your mountain. Bring the feet back underneath the hips. Move the blocks just in front of you. From here, we're gonna come all the way down, and then we're gonna bring the sitting bones on the floor, and we're coming into a bow pose. So in this transition, you can help bringing the hands behind and guiding the sitting bones on the floor. Grab hold of a block, and as we're transitioning into a bow pose, we're gonna find a way that the blocks can add strength here. So we're gonna lean back, we're gonna place a block between our thighs, between our knees, and then lift up. The hands can be to support you behind the thighs and behind the knees, and they can keep here. The spine is long, the chest is open. You can also reach the arms forward if you feel stable. You're squeezing the thighs, the knees in towards each other, and this can really help your adductors, and you can help gaining a little bit more strength into the legs. Remember, bow pose, upright, is more a pose that focuses on the hip flexors, which are the ones working to keep your legs lifted, than your core. Then your low bow, for example, that's a little bit more targeting your anterior core, your abdominals. So stay here. Hands, again, can be supporting you behind the thighs. Feel the sensations. Keep squeezing the block in. Well done. And then bring the feet on the ground and move the block away. Beautiful job. We're almost at the end. I hope this is useful to understand We're obviously not looking at all the poses where we can use blocks, but this can give you an idea of how you can use them. We're gonna look at just a few more, and we're gonna look at our vinyasa now. So come forward, and we're gonna move into our downward dog in a moment. The vinyasa that we're gonna look at now is a little bit different than the one we've been practicing so far. So I want to bring you through Chaturanga to upward dog. Chaturanga is a very popular pose. It's also very challenging and it requires a lot of strength in the body. So often, because it's part of such a dynamic transition, is overlooked, not explained properly, and people tend to not have a very nice form, collapse between the shoulders into the lower back, and it's just not nice for the body. So we're gonna look how the blocks can support you whenever you're ready to integrate this into your practice. So we're gonna place the blocks at the highest setting, shoulder distance. It might be that you have to adjust them a little bit, so be ready to do that. Hands are gonna be just behind you, and I want you to step back into a plank position. I did say that we're gonna move into downward dog, but let's take it from plank. From here, we want to lean forward so the shoulders will pass the wrist. If already doesn't feel good for your wrist, you can just sit and watch and keep it in your mind for a future time, a future practice. We're gonna shift forward, and then we're gonna start to bend the arms 90 degrees until the shoulders are coming on top of the blocks. You can always bring the knees on the floor. Make sure the hips are not lifting up. Make sure you're not coming into the lower back still. So you're keeping the hips moving forward, a bit of a tailbone tuck here. So you can stay in your plank or on your knees. This is the level more or less that you want to lower to. And then from there, then you're coming into a back bend. So feel it here. You can push the ground up and then try again. Shifting a little bit forward and then lowering down until the shoulders, the chest is onto the blocks and supported. The neck is long in line with the spine. Don't collapse the head down. This is the way that you can support and learn Chaturanga. From there, we normally transition into a back bend called upward dog. And for our upward dog, I will also give you an option on how to use the blocks. It can be quite a challenging back bend. So in upward dog, let's place the blocks like we had them for a downward dog. So lower setting, shoulder distance. Hands are gonna be on top of them. And from our plank position, you're gonna you can stay with the toes tapped, or you can come onto the top of the feet. And then from here, start to release the thighs on the ground, but not all the way. The thighs are staying lifted off the floor in your upward dog. And with your hands, you're pressing the floor away and then opening the chest forward. So we're not collapsing into the low back. The thighs are not coming down onto the ground. Having the blocks underneath the hands can give us a little bit more lift to avoid that collapse. Then bring the knees on the floor and send the hips back. I hope this was clear. This transition is, again, quite challenging. Bear that in mind. So if still didn't feel good, even with the blocks, that's okay. It's just something to keep in mind. You never know when it's gonna turn to be useful. Now, blocks away to the side. We're gonna come to a seated position. We're gonna bring the right shin parallel to the front of the mat, to the short side. Gonna give you two options for a pigeon pose. We're coming towards the end. We're entering now our cool down. So front shin can be parallel to the front. Back leg, the left leg in this case, 90-degree angle. So both are in a 90-degree angle. This is called a 90-90 sit. This is a very good variation from your pigeon pose. The blocks can be here to support you underneath the hands if you need to push the floor, especially through the right, to keep yourself lifted. And you can stay lifted, or you can move the blocks forward, come to the front, Maybe bring the forearms like we were doing in our lizard. This is your first option. Another one is to extend the back leg. So from here, you're gonna push the foot away and extend the left leg towards the back. The front shin can be still parallel to the front of the mat. Most commonly, you might need to bring that heel towards the left hip bone. Right heel towards left hip bone. The leg is more in a diagonal line. And then you're having both hips pointing to the front. You might find yourself quite lifted here. That's all good. This is what the blocks are here for. You're placing one underneath the right side, underneath the right bum or right thigh to support you. And then the other block can be there to support you underneath the hands, underneath the forearms, or perhaps underneath the forehead. And so let's take a few breaths here, wherever you are. Whether you're in your 90-90 sit, whether you're in your full pigeon, use the blocks to give you support here. And take a few full breaths. Well done. With control, start to lift yourself back up. Now, move the block from underneath the hip if you were in this variation. Shift onto the right and gently bring that left leg forward. And we're gonna find the same variation. Let's try to get into the same variation you had onto the right side, onto the left. So it can be your 90-90 sit. This time, left shin parallel to the front, back leg 90 degree. And then you can have blocks either side of the hands or in front of you. If you're finding full pigeon, then left leg is going to be a little bit more diagonal. The heel can already come closer towards the right hip bone, and then you're extending the right leg towards the back. You can place a block underneath the left side, giving yourself a little bit of support, and then the other block can be in front of you. You can place the forearms, the forehead, whatever works for you. We're breathing here. And this pose can be, you can experience some discomfort here. No, it's normal. Of course, if there's any pain, then shift away, find some modification to find a way to move your body into a similar pose that works for you, that doesn't bring pain. But know that if it's some discomfort, the aim is throughout it to be able to breathe and to be able to still invite some softness into the body. Well done. Now start to lift yourself back up. Move the block away if it was underneath the left side. Lean to the left, bring that right leg forward. We're gonna move the block to the side. Make sure that you can still reach them once you're laying down on your back. And from here, we're coming all the way down. And we're gonna take one last pose before our Shavasana. We're gonna take a supported bridge pose. So we're gonna bring the heels underneath the knees. For your bridge pose, it's important that you know the heels are underneath the knees. They don't need to be attached to the bum. So they're going to be a little bit further to the front, but it's going to be a little bit different for everyone depending on your body proportions. The feet then can be hip distance. I don't suggest to keep the feet close together. So hip distance or perhaps a little bit wider. Maybe the toes are pointing forward, but they can also point slightly towards the outside. So I invite you to play around, to try it out and find what works. Make sure you have a hold of a block. With your inhale, you're gonna imprint the spine down on the ground. And with your exhale, you start to lift the hips up towards the sky, just enough to be able to place the block underneath your sacrum. The block can be into the lower setting or into the medium setting. Make sure the block is underneath the bony part so that it is not into the lower back. It shouldn't give any pain, so if it does, take a moment to adjust. The arms can be down on the ground either side of the hips, or you can reach them all the way above the head. The legs can be bent exactly as we had them a moment ago, or you can also extend them. This will make the back bend a little bit more intense, so make sure you find what works for you. Well done. Just a couple more breaths here. And then bend the knees again if they weren't already. Heels underneath the knees. Press the feet on the ground so that you can lift the hips up and you can gently remove the block out of the way. Bring the feet close towards the sides of the mat. And then drop the knees side to side. Gentle twists. Beautiful. Then come all the way back through center. And I want you to lift yourself back up to seated just briefly before your Shavasana, because we're going to place the blocks in the lower setting underneath the knees. So then when we're coming down, we can take a moment to adjust. They're supporting behind our legs. And we're finding now our Shavasana, our corpse pose, where we're letting everything go. This is the first time we're experiencing this pose in this journey. So I invite you to take as much space as you need. If you're feeling a little bit cold, take a moment to grab hold of a blanket. I really want you to find a very comfortable place where to be. Letting go of any effort. Relaxing the feet, the toes. Relaxing the legs, soften the belly, relax the shoulders, the arms, the hands. We're still keeping the back of the neck long, so chin comes slightly in towards the chest. Relax the face. Make sure there's space between the teeth. Relax the cheeks. That space between your eyebrows and the forehead. Arriving in this place of complete stillness just for a few moments so that your body can rest and soak in the practice. I invite you to stay here for at least a couple of minutes, but then as long as you need. Thank you so much for moving and practicing with me. Well done, and I'll see you tomorrow.